luxury hotel humiliated and kicked out Morgan Freeman without even realizing who he'd turn out to be the very next day. Before we dive in, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching this from. The lobby of the Grand Marival Hotel was pure luxury. Every surface gleamed, every corner whispered exclusivity. The marble floors reflected the soft, golden light of towering crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen fireworks overhead. Rich velvet chairs invited only the elite to sit, while famous artworks lined the walls, each frame seemingly saying, "You don't belong here unless you can afford it." Guests floated through the space like they were in a movie. Men in custom suits spoke quietly, their expensive watches catching the light with every casual flick of the wrist. Women in flowing designer gowns moved gracefully, their subtle laughter calculated, each glance a quiet competition of status. This wasn't just a hotel. It was a showroom for the ultra-wealthy. The staff matched the mood, impeccable uniforms, perfect smiles, everything rehearsed. The women behind the desk looked like models in business attire, their hair styled in identical buns. The men were polished, composed, and distant, professional, but emotionally detached. If you weren't part of the club, you could feel it in the air. Then, through the revolving glass doors, walked Morgan Freeman. He wasn't dressed for a gala. He wore faded jeans, a navy sweater, and a worn leather jacket. A travel bag hung from his shoulder, scuffed from years of use. His face, instantly recognizable to millions, carried the exhaustion of back-to-back filming days. All he wanted was one quiet night of sleep. At first, no one paid attention. The staff were too busy catering to a guest in an Armani suit. But a couple sitting near the staircase noticed. The woman leaned in, whispering to her partner with a soft gasp. Morgan smiled faintly, gave a polite nod, and looked away, trying not to attract attention. He walked to the front desk and waited. Eventually, a young woman with icy blue eyes and a rehearsed smile glanced in his direction. Her gaze flicked over his clothes. She didn't say anything outright, but something shifted. Her posture stiffened just slightly. She cleared her throat. "Yes, can I help you?" Her voice was polite, but distant. "Good evening," Morgan said. "I'd like a room for the night. I don't have a reservation, but I'm happy to pay whatever's needed." She paused, fingers tapping at the keyboard. The smile stayed, but it felt robotic now. Her eyes bounced between the screen and Morgan. "I'm sorry," she said, her tone soft but firm. "We don't have any rooms available tonight." Morgan blinked. He glanced past her, toward the elevators, where no one was even waiting. "No rooms at all?" he asked, calm but surprised. She hesitated, then repeated with a more clipped tone, "Unfortunately, we're fully booked." Morgan adjusted his bag. "That's odd," he said. "I've stayed here before, never had a problem getting a room." "Are you sure?" Their exchange caught the eye of the hotel security guard near the door. Tall, broad, with a shaved head, the guard began to approach slowly, watching the conversation unfold. The receptionist noticed too, and straightened up a little more. "I'm sorry, sir," she said louder now. "But we cannot accommodate you tonight. You may want to try somewhere else." Morgan took a deep breath. His frustration was obvious, but he kept his cool. "All right," he said, reaching into his pocket. "Let me just check online, maybe something's opened up." But before he could even open his phone, the guard stepped forward, his voice low and commanding, "Is everything all right here?" The receptionist, clearly relieved by his presence, nodded quickly. "Yes," she said, glancing briefly at Morgan. "This gentleman was just leaving." Morgan turned toward the guard, meeting his gaze with quiet composure. "I'm not causing any trouble," he said calmly. "I just asked for a room." The guard crossed his arms, his stance hardening. "Sir, if the hotel is fully booked, there's nothing more we can do. I suggest you move along." Morgan opened his mouth to speak again, but the guard's tone made it clear there was no room for negotiation. The receptionist, emboldened now, added curtly, "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, sir. Shoulders sagging slightly, Morgan reached for his bag. Without another word, he turned and walked toward the exit. Behind him, he could feel the weight of judgmental stares, cold, assessing. The receptionist's indifference. The guard's suspicion. The hushed whispers of guests who'd watched the exchange. The humiliation stung, but he swallowed it, stepped through the heavy glass doors, and into the night. The cold air hit him like a wall. It smelled faintly of rain, sharp and clean. He stood under the hotel's awning for a moment, fingers tightening on the strap of his withered bag. In the reflection on the glass doors, he saw his own tired figure staring back, distant now from the golden glow of the lobby, like he'd been cast out of a world he once belonged to. With a long breath, he turned and stepped into the drizzle. The city lights blurred through the wet air, smearing into streaks of color. His footsteps echoed faintly as he walked the quiet sidewalks, every step pressing down on the weight in his chest. The interaction at the desk replayed in his head on loop, the receptionist's cold politeness, the guard's quiet authority, the complete dismissal. It wasn't new to him. He'd seen it before. But tonight, it hit differently. Maybe because he'd let his guard down. Maybe because he thought, after all he'd done, after all he'd become, that he'd earned enough respect to never face this again. His hand hovered over his phone. He could call his assistant. Have them book another room. Fix everything. But something in him refused. Not out of pride. Out of principle. He didn't want this moment to be swept under a rug with a few clicks and a credit card. So he kept walking. By the time he made it back near the hotel, the light rain had turned into a full downpour. He stood across the street, half hidden in the shadows, watching as guests stepped out of luxury cars, staff rushing with umbrellas to shield them from the storm. It felt like another planet. He didn't even notice the two men coming out of the building until one of them called out, "Hey, you again." It was the same security guard. Only now he was joined by a younger, more aggressive partner. They crossed the street toward him, moving with purpose. "You need to move along," the older one said, his voice cutting through the rain. Morgan stood his ground. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just standing here." "Didn't you hear him?" the younger guard snapped, stepping forward. "You're loitering. People are noticing." Morgan's patience thinned. "They're noticing because you're the one causing a scene," he replied evenly. The younger guard let out a short laugh. "Don't get smart with me." "I'm not," Morgan said firmly. "I'm standing here, not bothering anyone." Without warning, the older guard reached for Morgan's arm. Instinctively, Morgan pulled back. "Sir, I'm asking you to leave," the guard said, his tone sharper now. "And I'm asking you to stop treating me like I'm a criminal," Morgan replied, heat rising in his voice. That's when the younger guard grabbed his bag, yanked it, hard. "Hey! Don't touch me!" Morgan snapped, pulling it free. By now, a few people on the street had slowed, watching the confrontation unfold. The older guard noticed the attention and lowered his voice, though his words remained firm. "If you don't leave, we'll have to call the police." Morgan stepped back, raising his hands in frustration. "Fine. I'm leaving." But the younger guard couldn't resist. "You better," he muttered, then added under his breath, just loud enough to be heard. "Should have known better than to let someone like you hang around." Morgan froze. Those words cut deeper than anything else. He turned slowly, his eyes locking on the younger guard. "Someone like me?" The guard smirked. "You heard me." Morgan's chest burned, but he held back the anger threatening to rise. He didn't want to give them what they wanted. He just shook his head, turned, and walked away. Behind him, the two guards whispered to each other, their voices quickly lost in the falling rain. The night dragged on. Morgan wandered the streets, his clothes soaked through, the cold seeping deep into his bones. The city was alive but uncaring. Every passing car, every flickering light seemed to look past him like he didn't exist. Eventually, he found himself at a quiet park. He collapsed onto a bench beneath a dim street lamp, its light flickering above like it too was unsure if he belonged there. The rain had slowed, but the chill stayed. The cold stayed with him, seeping deep into his bones. Morgan pulled his jacket tighter and leaned back on the bench, letting the rain-damp night wrap around him like a memory. And memories came, uninvited, raw. Moments from his childhood. His early years in the industry. Times when doors were slammed, and he had to prove himself over and over again. He'd always held his head high, always pushed through. But tonight felt different. Heavy. Personal. He pulled out his phone, the screen glowing faintly in the dark. His thumb hovered over the contact list. His assistant's name was right there, one call, and by sunrise, the hotel would be begging to apologize. But he didn't tap it. Not this time. He scrolled past. Stopped. Dialed another number. The phone rang twice before a groggy voice picked up. Morgan? It's late. Everything okay? I need you to look into something, Morgan said, voice steady despite the storm inside. The Grand Maryville Hotel. Who owns it? There was a pause. Why? What happened? Morgan glanced up at the black sky. I just need the information. Fast. By dawn, the rain had finally stopped. Morgan was still there, soaked, tired, but clear-headed. He had made a decision. This wasn't going to be another story where he just walked away. The first streaks of sunlight crept across the skyline, casting long shadows on the waking streets. Morgan sat still, gripping the strap of his bag, the city slowly coming alive around him. Early risers passed by, some staring briefly, others too busy to notice. The night had worn him down, but it had also given him something else, clarity. At first, his thoughts had swirled around the hotel staff, the cold eyes, the subtle cruelty, the sense that he'd been reduced to nothing more than a problem to be removed. But by morning, those thoughts shifted. He wasn't just another man turned away. He was Morgan Freeman. That name meant something. And if even he could be treated this way, what did that say about the rest of the world? He reached into his bag again. The phone was nearly dead, a perfect metaphor for how he felt, but it had just enough juice for one more call. He didn't call his assistant. He didn't want damage control. He wanted action. He called his lawyer. Morning, Morgan, came the voice, more alert now. I've been working since your call. Got the info you asked for. Morgan sat up straighter on the bench. Tell me. The Grand Maryville is owned by Fairmont Holdings, a boutique hotel group. It's their flagship. But here's the thing, they're in trouble. Bleeding money. Bookings are down. Overhead's killing them. And get this, there was already some quiet controversy last year about discriminatory practices. They buried it. Morgan's grip on the phone tightened. How bad is it? Bad enough they're shopping the chain to potential buyers. No serious takers yet. The Maryville is dragging them under. A small smile crept across Morgan's face. Perfect. There was hesitation on the line. Morgan, what are you thinking? Morgan looked up. The sun was rising now, casting a warm light across his face. I'm thinking it's time someone taught them what respect looks like. The next few hours were quiet, but focused. Morgan found a nearby cafe, dried his clothes under a restroom hand dryer, and sipped a bitter black coffee. His resolve was solid now. He wasn't going to go public. He wasn't going to rant online. He was going to do what they never saw coming. He called his financial advisor. And just like that, the plan was in motion. For the next 3 days, Morgan stayed low. No interviews. No statements. Just quiet meetings in private rooms. Phone calls. Contracts. His team combed through Fairmont Holdings financials, analyzed their weaknesses, and opened negotiations. At first, the hotel group hesitated. They asked questions, dragged their feet. But Morgan's name carried weight. And when they realized he wasn't bluffing and that he had the capital to back it all up, their resistance started to crack. By the fourth day, the deal was nearly sealed. Morgan sat in a sleek, glass-walled boardroom overlooking the city skyline. Around him sat lawyers, financial execs, and the last holdouts of Fairmont Holdings. A thick contract lay in front of him, its pages stacked with legal jargon and signatures. One of the executives, a nervous man with thinning hair, cleared his throat. "Mr. Freeman, are you sure? This hotel, it needs work. A lot of it." Morgan leaned back, gaze steady. "I'm sure." The man nodded and slid the final page across the table. Morgan picked up the pen, signed his name. And just like that, the Grand Maryville was his. But the best part was still to come. He didn't return to the hotel alone this time. He arrived in a black luxury car, flanked by his lawyer, his publicist, and a film crew. And as the doorman stepped forward, about to ask for his name, Morgan just smiled. "I own the place," he said. A few days later, the Grand Maryville lobby looked very different, but not because of any renovation just yet. It was the expression on the faces that had changed. Morgan Freeman stepped through the doors, not alone this time, but flanked by his legal counsel, his PR manager, and a small group of journalists whose cameras clicked the moment his feet hit the polished marble. The room fell silent. Every step he took echoed louder than the last. And one by one, the staff froze. Eyes widened. Faces turned pale. The receptionist from his first visit was still at the desk. Her face lost all color the moment she recognized him. Morgan didn't glare. He didn't raise his voice. He simply walked to the counter, set his bag down, and said in a calm, even tone that cut through the silence, "I believe I'll take that room now." Before she could find the words, the hotel manager appeared. Yes, that manager, the one who had brushed Morgan off just days before. Now, his stride was hesitant, his face tense, his hands nervously folded in front of him. "Mr. Freeman," he began, voice strained, I wasn't expecting." Morgan raised a hand. "You weren't expecting me to own this place," he said flatly. The manager opened his mouth again, but no words came. Morgan turned to face the gathered staff and press, his voice firm and clear. "Let me make one thing very clear. Things are going to change around here, starting today." Cameras zoomed in. Not a single flash could distract him. "Discrimination has no place in this hotel. Or anywhere," he continued. "What happened to me should never happen to anyone. And I won't stand for it, not as a guest, not as an owner, not as a man." Some staff looked away. Others looked ashamed. The manager said nothing. Morgan's eyes swept the room. "Some of you," he said, pausing for effect, "will have to answer for your actions. Others will have the chance to prove they're better than this. But don't get it twisted, this is no longer the Grand Maryville you thought you knew." Then he turned back to the manager. "We'll talk. Privately." And with that, the two disappeared into a back office. By the end of the day, the news had already spread. The Grand Maryville had a new owner. Its doors were closed, effective immediately, for renovations. The staff who had mistreated Morgan were gone. Some were fired. Others were suspended pending a full investigation. But for Morgan Freeman, this wasn't about revenge. It was about transformation. He stood in the now empty lobby, staring at the space in silence. Soon, it would be unrecognizable. And he was ready. The lobby buzzed now, not with wealthy guests or hushed elitist whispers, but with the sounds of drills, ladders, hammering. Workers moved through the space with purpose, protective sheets covering the once pristine marble. The chandeliers had been taken down. Gold trim stripped away. It wasn't destruction. It was rebirth. Morgan stood at the center of it all, arms crossed, eyes scanning the progress. It had been less than 48 hours since the deal closed, but change was already underway. There was no time to waste. The old staff had been dismissed or reassigned. Those who'd shown remorse? Given a second chance, but only after completing mandatory training in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those who hadn't? Gone. The message was simple: this would be a new kind of luxury. Inclusive. Human. Real. His lawyer approached, a thick packet in her hand. "We're on schedule," she said, handing over the daily progress report. "Permits approved. HR's already screening new staff. Interviews begin next week." Morgan nodded, flipping through the pages. "And the press?" She gave a small smile. "All positive so far. No leaks about the incident, yet." Morgan's jaw tightened. He knew it was only a matter of time. But when the story did break, he wanted to be ready, with action, not just words. He remembered the meeting with Fairmont Holdings. The tension in the room. Their desperation to sell, but reluctance to admit why. He hadn't had to say much. Just one line made everything clear. "This isn't just a business decision. This is personal." Now, as he moved through the construction zone, Morgan felt the full weight of that promise. This hotel was more than walls and beds. It was a symbol. And it had to be rebuilt on new values, with a new purpose. He stopped near the elevators where his assistant was waiting. "The design team's ready for you," she said. He followed her into a temporary meeting room. Blueprints were spread across the table. Designers stood ready with swatches of color, textures, and plans. They spoke of warmth, natural woods, softer lines, earth tones that invited comfort instead of intimidation. Morgan listened. He didn't need opulence. He needed intention. And he had it. Lighting replaced the harsh glare of the past. As the design team wrapped up their presentation, Morgan leaned back in his chair, his tone calm but purposeful. "This isn't just about aesthetics," he said. "It's about atmosphere. I want people to feel welcome the moment they walk through those doors. No more silent barriers, no more invisible lines deciding who belongs and who doesn't." The lead designer nodded, jotting notes. "We'll make it happen." Later that evening, Morgan sat in the former manager's office. The leather chairs and oak desk remained, but the air felt clearer now, emptier, as if the past had already begun to leave. He studied the folders spread out before him: resumes, disciplinary reports, staff evaluations. Each file told a story. Some, a single lapse in judgment. Others, patterns that couldn't be ignored. His lawyer stepped in. "Ready for the meeting?" Morgan nodded. The staff gathered in the newly refurbished conference room, no longer sterile or intimidating. Warm lighting, soft tones, and open space set the tone. Morgan took his place at the head of the table, the silence almost deafening. "You all know why we're here," he began. "What happened last week wasn't just a bad night. It was a symptom of something deeper, a culture that let discrimination grow unchecked." A ripple of unease passed through the room, but Morgan didn't stop. "That ends now." He looked around the table. "Some of you are here because you believe in change. Others because you're hoping to keep your job. Either way, you're going to be held accountable." His lawyer stepped forward and began reading names. First, the manager. Morgan didn't sugarcoat it. "You had a chance to lead with integrity. You didn't. You're no longer part of this team." The man stood, pale, and walked out without a word. Then came the two guards. Morgan looked each in the eye. "You treated me like a threat instead of a guest. That wasn't just unprofessional. It was unacceptable." They tried to protest, but Morgan silenced them. "You saw me, and you assumed the worst. That's a mindset this place can't afford to keep." They were dismissed. Finally, the receptionist. She was shaking. Tearful. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Please, give me another chance." Morgan steadied her. "You'll have to earn it," he said. "Mandatory training, regular evaluations, and no guarantees." She nodded quickly, gratitude flooding her face. From there, Morgan laid out the new vision. Strict conduct policies, mandatory diversity training, zero tolerance for exclusion. This hotel, he made clear, would no longer serve privilege, it would serve people. Over the next few weeks, Morgan was hands-on. He sat through workshops. He listened. He led by example. The new staff were hired with care, interviewed personally, selected for empathy and integrity. The old guard had been replaced by something new, something hopeful. And 1 month later, the Grand Merivale reopened, reborn. The lobby, now filled with light and warmth, was unrecognizable. Guests of all backgrounds passed through, families, couples, business travelers, all greeted with sincerity and respect. This wasn't just hospitality. It was humanity. Morgan stood near the reception desk as a journalist approached. "Mr. Freeman," she said, "what inspired you to take this on?" He smiled, folding his hands. "It wasn't inspiration," he said. "It was experience. I walked through these doors and saw what so many people see every day, a wall, not made of stone, but of prejudice. I couldn't ignore it." "And what message do you hope the hotel sends now?" she asked. "That everyone belongs," Morgan answered. "No exceptions." That evening, the grand reopening ceremony filled the space with music, food, and conversation. Local artists, community leaders, and guests gathered to celebrate the transformation. Midway through, Morgan took the stage. "This isn't just about a building," he said. "It's about refusing to accept the status quo. About choosing to be better, together." The applause was quiet at first, then thundered as his words landed. Later that night, he stepped out onto the terrace to breathe. The city lights stretched across the skyline. Behind him, he heard a soft voice. "Mr. Freeman?" It was the elderly couple he had spoken to during the soft opening. "We didn't mean to intrude," the man said. Morgan smiled. "You're not intruding." The woman stepped closer. "We just wanted to thank you again. We've been visiting this city for years, but we never felt like we belonged in a place like this. Until now." Morgan's voice caught slightly. "You shouldn't have ever felt that way." "But we did," the man said gently. "And now we don't." Morgan nodded. "That's not because of me. It's because of all of us." The couple smiled and turned to leave, but their words lingered. In the weeks that followed, the Grand Merivale became more than a hotel, it became a movement. Review after review praised not just the decor or the food, but the feeling. A place where everyone was seen. A place where dignity mattered. One afternoon, Morgan sat quietly in the cafe when he overheard two young women chatting nearby. "I heard the owner was once turned away here," one said. "Seriously?" the other replied. "Now look at it. One of the best places in the city." Morgan just smiled, sipped his coffee, said nothing. On his final visit before leaving town, he stood in the lobby one last time, this time not as a critic, but simply as a man looking at what he'd helped create. The receptionist, the same woman from that first night, approached nervously. "Mr. Freeman," she said, "thank you for giving me a second chance." Morgan met her gaze. "You earned it," he said. "Just keep earning it." She nodded, her posture straighter, her smile more real. Morgan turned and walked to the exit. He paused for one final glance. The Grand Merivale wasn't just a hotel anymore. It was proof. Proof that respect could replace judgment. That dignity could defeat exclusion. That change was possible. He stepped into the street, his stride steady. The fight wasn't over, but this battle? This one, he'd won. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment. Where are you watching from, and what part of this story stuck with you the most? Share it with someone who needs a little reminder that change is always possible. And stick around, because more stories like this are on the way.